Good afternoon. Let's do some business. We're doing it live right here, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons. We get right down to business with the news-driven hour right after Ben Shapiro and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money, live on the air on 790 KBC. Streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com and your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, all your favorite podcast platforms. It's Presidential Election Eve 2024. Tomorrow night, join us live for election night coverage with the economy top of mind for voters. I'll be joining John Phillips and Randy Wang with live election night coverage starting at 7 p.m. Did you turn all of your clocks back an hour over the weekend? It's going to be getting dark early this evening. Then, according to the latest polls, Americans are still in the dark as to who's going to take the White House after tomorrow. Stocks ending lower today as investors await the presidential election results. Maybe we'll get them tomorrow, maybe not. The Dow coming in for a closing loss of 258 points to kick off the new week. The S&P 500 slipped 16, and the Nasdaq closed lower by 60 points. We did see a rally in U.S. government debt triggered by a Des Moines Register poll that tilted in favor of Vice President Harris in Iowa in tomorrow's election, setting the rate on the longest-dated government maturity down by the most in 2 months, and the yield in the 10-year note also moved lower after the Iowa election poll tilted in favor of Harris. The yield in the 10-year note now at 4.29%. That's the one that impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates, which have been rising lately. NVIDIA back in the spotlight. It'll replace Intel in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and that's big news. Intel joined the Dow about 25 years ago. The company's seen its status as a semiconductor powerhouse fade away as it hasn't kept pace with the latest trends, mainly AI, but while many hot chip stocks have hit recent highs, Intel's record close dates back to the year 2000, and shares are trading about 70% below that point now. We see Intel stock hovering around $22 and change. NVIDIA, meanwhile, is up around $136 and change. Crude oil back in the spotlight and moving higher today after a decision by the OPEC Plus countries, that is, to extend voluntary production cuts by another month. This week, OPEC Plus might have hit the pause button, according to Market Watch, but the market roller coaster is just getting started, according to some analysts. We see the price of oil in New York right now just below $72 a barrel, and in London just above $75 a barrel. Natural gas also in the spotlight, moving higher by about 4% today. This because of an intensifying weather system, a tropical depression that might be headed into the Gulf of Mexico. That depression is expected to become a tropical storm sometime later today, possibly, and even a hurricane by Wednesday, possibly threatening the New Orleans area. Dollar stocks have been in the spotlight lately. Of course, our 99 cents only stores closed this year because there's nothing left for 99 cents anymore. Dollar Tree today announcing that that Rick Dreiling has stepped down as the company's chief executive of the discount retailer due to health reasons. Dollar Tree shares moving up about 6% here in after-hours trading. Bitcoin moving lower today to around 67,000. This sixth straight daily drop for Bitcoin. Crypto traders await the presidential election results, which, of course, will be critical to the future of crypto, especially Bitcoin and the other big ones. Rancho Palos Verdes, meanwhile, finally getting some help from FEMA to try to mitigate the big landslide problem issue in the city following the storms over the past couple of years and concerns about what will happen when it starts raining again. We'll get the very latest this afternoon from the Rancho Palos Verdes Mayor, John Cruikshank, who will be joining me live later this hour. The homeless are voting in Los Angeles, including in the Venice Beach area. We'll get an update on crime and homelessness this afternoon with Soledad Ursua, who's the Venice Neighborhood Council board member who keeps us well informed as to what's happening there. But first, on your money, the markets and the economy and the whole works now. Joining us live, Gabriel Wisdom, Managing Director at American Money Management and author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much for stepping up to the plate on this election eve here, and give us your view of things as we head into Election Day tomorrow.
You know, Frank, this year's presidential race has certainly been framed as the existential battle to either save democracy or save America. And the fact remains that, we have democracy, and also America is doing pretty well. We have a 4% unemployment rate. The average GDP per individual is above $80,000 a year. There's been inflation, certainly, but this is perhaps the most important election of our lifetimes. That would include the other elections of our lifetime, but certainly this one. The labor market. If you back out the effects of the strikes and, of course, the hurricanes that you mentioned, the labor market is in really great shape. The economy's performed remarkably well over the years, despite who's sitting, in the Oval Office. And recessions have occurred when either party had the White House. Both parties certainly have contributed to the ballooning deficit, and both parties have had lots of problems. So, but the markets, I would say, Frank, are on hold, waiting to see what happens. And we may not have an answer if this is like Bush versus Gore. We didn't have an answer until December 12th of 2000. This could go on for some time.
Right. Regarding that jobs report, with only 12,000 jobs created, right, last month, that was well below analysts' expectations due to a variety of reasons. And we keep hearing that phrase, the economy's doing great, the economy's doing great. But consumers and investors still seem to be rather uneasy based on some of the recent polling we've seen, and with the economy front and center in this election. What do you think's going on here with maybe things look good on paper, but because of inflation and other factors, people not feeling so good?
Well, you make a good point. Earnings, and we're in the latter part of earnings season, earnings have been somewhat disappointing, except for in technology. So the economy does appear to be slowing, and maybe that's the argument for the Federal Reserve this Thursday to reduce interest rates again, maybe by 0.25%. The best measure of economic health historically has been the so-called PCE, the Personal Consumptions Expenditures rating. Personal consumption of goods and services in the U.S. has actually doubled since 1980. It's up some fivefold since 1960. So in the long view, things are better. In the short run, everything costs more, and people don't feel much richer.
All right. What about the belief that the Fed's going to cut again after that half-point cut last time around? Do you think they will go forward with a quarter-point cut, despite the fact that we've seen the benchmark bond yields move higher ever since that big cut by the Fed in the last month or so?
That's a good point. The open market is saying no, interest rates shouldn't go lower. In fact, the 10-year Treasury could easily be at 5% before very long. And, nothing seems to be stopping the U.S. Treasury bond yields from rising, and mortgage rates as well, despite what the Federal Reserve does. This harkens back to Paul Volcker in the early 1980s. Despite what the Fed tried to do, interest rates kept going up. I suspect that's the case here.
All right, here we are in November now, and you're also a market historian and do a great job analyzing history, if that can be used, if past is a prelude here. What can we expect here in the next couple of months before this is usually a good time of the year for the stock market, right?
It is historically, yeah. The fourth year of a presidential administration is historically very, very strong. And if history is any guide, and we have presidential elections going back, really good data going back to 1900. That's a long time ago. And all five presidents running for re-election who happened to have a recession in the year that they were running for re-election lost, including former President Donald Trump. Now, it wasn't his fault. It's just there was COVID and there was a recession. George H.W. Bush, same problem. Of course, Jimmy Carter, he didn't get a second term. Herbert Hoover, William Howard Taft. We go back, and the data is pretty clear. Maybe the reason why this race is so tight is that the economy, on balance, is strong. We don't have a recession, and the incumbent party, well, we don't know. It's just certainly up in the air.
Well, we'll find out maybe tomorrow, so stay tuned. I'll be part of the election night coverage here, by the way, so hope everybody stays tuned tomorrow evening through the evening with John Phillips and Randy Wang and yours truly right here on 790 KABC. Now, what about what's happening with oil? Obviously, a nervous time in the Middle East with daily developments there, and Iran again threatening Israel and so forth. And we see oil, about $75 now in London and near 72 in New York. Looks like there's upward pressure on inflation there, and natural gas prices have moved higher because of that storm that's approaching the Gulf of Mexico. That, of course, energy costs a big source of the inflation, along with housing costs. Once you give us your view of what's happening on those fronts.
I'm very surprised that oil isn't higher here, but I think it's mostly because OPEC has been opening up the supply. Geopolitics generally aren't a very useful signal for investors. In the past 25 years or so, the variables with the best predictive power for oil prices, inflation, that's been payrolls and industrial production and other leading indicators of financial conditions. With regard to oils, there's been some interest in it in anticipation of a Trump victory, but the fact remains that might be a net negative for oil prices, since President Trump has been saying, we're going to drill, baby, drill. Well, more supply ought to bring prices down. That'd be great for consumers. Obviously, what markets actually do beyond Wednesday and so forth, that's nobody knows. But the fact remains that oil trades on a variety of factors like economic data and general supply and demand and geopolitics. And so it's hard to speculate, but if long term, I'd want to own oil.
All right. Gold, of course, historically been a hedge against inflation, and gold has been hitting record highs in the last couple of weeks, above $2,800 an ounce. It had that big one-day drop last week, and is now hovering at around $2,743 an ounce. And silver, which has had an epic run this year, is about $32.50 or so at the moment. What about gold and silver here?
Frank, it's funny. Gold is having its strongest year in more than a decade. And clearly that's been fueled by all the issues around wars and conflicts, the geopolitical unrest, inflation certainly, and then the central banks of the world buying gold. So gold is up some 33% this year. But the big winner has been silver. Silver is playing catch up with gold. Silver is up over 40% in 2024. But in terms of the industrial production versus the supply deficits over gold versus silver, I think I prefer silver, but I like them both still.
All right. And speaking of playing catch-up, platinum well below the price of gold, hovering just above $1,000 an ounce. There was a time when platinum was a lot more expensive than gold. What about platinum here?
Well, you make a good point. If platinum is well below its peak back in 2010, 2011, I know silver is still 34% below the $50 per ounce peak that it hit back in 2011 or 13 years ago. So I think they're all playing catch up.
All right. And then you don't have the laser eyes on, I know. We do talk the big fans of crypto as well as the harshest critics, but you do watch what's happening. We did see Bitcoin make a run for a new high just in the last week or so, but it has pulled back. Bitcoin viewed as a Trump trade here. What about the cryptos here?
Yeah, it is a Trump trade because the former president favors cryptocurrencies along with a variety of other industries that we're all familiar with. I think the best thing that's happened for crypto might have happened today or this week, or latter part of last week, rather. There's a consortium of financial tech and cryptocurrency companies, and these include Galaxy Digital, Robinhood, Kraken, that have introduced a joint stable coin that is pegged to the U.S. dollar. It's not pegged to any other currency. It's pegged to the U.S. dollar, and they'll be elbowing their way to join the party with Tether, the two biggest players in this space, USD Coin and Tether. I think it's more evidence that crypto is here to stay.
All right, what about DJT, the Trump Media and Technology Group stock, which is also seen as a proxy for President Trump's chances to regain the White House? That stock's been all over the place. Today up nearly $4 at 34 and change. What do you make of that one?
Well, it's clearly it's the central casting Trump trade. Buying DJT stock has been very, very popular based on polls and so forth. Donald Trump owns 57% of DJT. The value of his stake has been all over the place. I think Forbes or Bloomberg estimated his net worth at something over $6 billion if he loses the election, and if DJT, which is the main product, of course, is Truth Social, if that were to fail, why Trump's net worth plummets, but he's still a billionaire, and then he's got those judgments to deal with. So the stakes have never been higher.
Yeah. All right. So NVIDIA is moving up in the world, replacing Intel and one of the key averages here. What about that important development? And what do you think of the magnificent one here at this point?
It's still magnificent, Frank. Artificial intelligence has a multiplier effect, and NVIDIA is right at the center of this, which is why it's performing so well. For every dollar that a corporation spends in capital improvements or CapEx, there's a multiplier effect of $19. And we're seeing some $206 billion in hyperscaler CapEx just this year. It's up 40% from last year. Companies all want to be part of this AI boom, and NVIDIA chips are at the center of it. So I think it was a good move on the part of the Dow committee.
All right. At this point, Gabriel Wisdom, let me ask you the big question here on this election eve. Any specific places where you are putting money now and/or taking it off the table?
Well, Frank, I'd avoid the tendency to want to gamble on the outcome of the election, and I'd want to go with a solid long-term theme regardless of who wins this election. Now, there's some evidence that we're in a nuclear renaissance. If you look at Constellation Energy, for example, which is an electric energy company that has nuclear, that stock has done extremely well. It was soft today because the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission on Friday rejected a deal citing some ramifications with Amazon. But Amazon has made an early move into nuclear. So has Google and Microsoft. I think that's here to say I want to own an exchange-traded fund that owns them all. Also, electric vehicles, it's the batteries, the picks and axes of this gold rush. Volkswagen, for example, has a new battery that might take you 500 miles between charges. This is phenomenal. These are areas I want to own over the long run.
All right, terrific. Well, Gabriel, thank you very much for taking the call this afternoon. Gabriel Wisdom, Managing Director of American Money Management, which is based here in Southern California. He's also the author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about in the week ahead. Hopefully you'll join us again. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank.
And right out to the freeways we go now, here on 790 KABC. Frank Mottek here. Did you know that for more than 10,000 years, gold has been the greatest store of value and considered a safe haven asset to preserve your wealth? Well, now with the U.S. debt at more than $35 trillion and climbing, not to mention the Biden administration getting us involved in costly wars, developing the digital dollar, central bank digital currency, and inflation still spiraling out of control, it's more critical now than ever before to safeguard your assets like your cash savings and retirement accounts with physical gold. Opening a gold IRA is one of the best ways to secure your wealth and create a stable financial future. Stop worrying about your retirement in the market and cash savings in the bank. Feel confident, prepared, and in control with physical gold and, yes, silver. Give Joe Morgan a call at 1-800-753-8534 and mention yours truly, Frank Mottek, and you can get $1,000 worth of silver with a qualifying purchase. 1-800-753-8534 or or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com. Mottek On Money continues on 790 KBC. Good afternoon. Election Eve 2024. Tomorrow's the big day, the presidential election. Of course, other important elections here locally as well as statewide. The Dow coming in for a closing loss today of 258 points at 41,795. S&P 500 down 16 at 5,713. The NASDAQ down 60 at 18,180. And the yield on the 10-year note now back to 4.29%. Bitcoin up about 500 now at 67,830. Ethereum up 25 at 2,396. Doge at 16 cents. Taking a look at the price of gold right now, down nearly $3 at $2,743, 60 cents an ounce. Silver down 10 cents at 32.51 an ounce. Crude oil on the rise, up 6 cents at 71.93 a barrel. And we see Brent crude in London hovering above $75 a barrel here at the moment. Shares of NVIDIA, the magnificent one, bucking the overall downward trend today, moving higher by 65 cents at 136.05. Intel down 68 cents at 22.52. Dollar Tree Stores shares moving up 21 cents today at 66.81, but popping about 6% higher in after-hours trading. Looks like the company's CEO is leaving due to health reasons. Taking a look at the euro right now, it's 109 versus the dollar. We're at 152.24 versus the Japanese yen, 129 versus the British pound sterling, and at 20.10 versus the Mexican peso. And now the latest news for you here on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KABC. Be sure to stay tuned tomorrow evening on election night. We'll have coverage right here with yours truly and John Phillips and Randy Wang. Election night 2024 presidential election. Of course, all the local races will be followed as well, so be sure to join us tomorrow evening. Rancho Palos Verdes, meanwhile, finally getting some help from FEMA to try to mitigate the big landslide problem in the city following the storms we've seen over the past couple of years and concerns about what will happen if it starts raining again. Looks like there's a property buyout program that's getting started. And joining us live now is the Rancho Palos Verdes Mayor, the Honorable John Cruikshank, who's kept us well informed as to what's happening there in the city. Mayor, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon. Mayor, can you give us an update on what's happening there?
Sure. No, as you mentioned, FEMA actually has stepped up, and they've offered to us what we're calling a voluntary property buyout program, and that's $42 million of FEMA funding that will go toward purchasing homes within our distressed area that are red tagged and yellow tagged.
All right. So how many homes potentially are eligible for this buyout program?
Right. Well, so they're offering up to the fair market value as of December of 2023. So. Or 2022, excuse me. And so you can imagine that any home in California is going to be expensive. So we're probably talking 20 to 30 homes that'll be able to purchase.
What is the situation there now? How perilous is that landslide situation? How much is the land moving at this point?
Well, so a couple things. We've been successful in installing vertical deep dewatering wells out there in the landslide area, mainly at the beach, and now we've moved them up to about where Palos Verdes Drive South is. We've actually reduced land movement down in certain areas to almost no movement at all, so it's been very successful. Of course, that's just one area, and we have to continue that throughout the landslide area. I think what's interesting about this FEMA buyout program is that when we first announced it early last week, there were only 2 homes red tagged, and we have offered free inspections from our city to come out and take a look. And as of now, there's now 7 homes that are red tagged, and those are moved to the top of the list. These are homes that people have to vacate and can no longer live in, but they've moved to the top of this list.
I know from speaking with you over the past couple of years, looks like they have the right person as mayor. You yourself are a civil engineer, right? Do you yourself do these inspections?
Well, that's correct. I am a civil engineer, and sometimes things just work in a timely manner. Of course, it's been a very unfortunate year for our residents, though, but being a civil engineer has been able to help in terms of being able to understand what's been going on and be able to get that information out to our residents and to the press like yourself.
On the air live with the Honorable John Cruikshank, who is the mayor of Rancho Palos Verdes, and certainly anyone that's driven through that area knows that road is rather bumpy and rather treacherous, right? Give us an update on what it's like driving through that area now.
Well, driving through it now, just like it's probably been for the last 50 or 60 years, has been quite a challenge. There's certain parts of Palos Verdes Drive South we affectionately call the ski jump. If you were to drive more than 20 miles an hour, you're definitely going to get air in your car. It's about a mile stretch that continually moves, and over the last couple of years, it's been moving a substantial amount, and to the point where we've had to fix it almost on a weekly basis versus a monthly basis what it was in the past. So it's been quite a challenge for us to keep that open. There's 15,000 cars that use that roadway every day.
Yeah, I was down there earlier this year, and it was treacherous, and I can just imagine what it's like at night. Have they added some lighting there or additional signage to warn people of those steep drops there?
No, it's really treacherous during the day, and at nighttime it just makes it that much worse. We've added a little bit of lighting. I wouldn't say a lot. We've added certainly a lot of signs, and you might recall a few months ago we actually closed it to large trucks and to two-wheel vehicles, including bikes and motorcycles, because it is so treacherous. We care about people's safety, and we still need to keep the road open, but we need to probably keep some of those vehicles out there that it's too treacherous for them.
All right, as part of all this land movement, I know the power was cut to a lot of places, too. Any updates on what's happening on the power front in your city?
Sure. Well, as soon as we had some success in reducing the amount of land movement, which I talked about a little earlier, the first thing we did just a few days later is we wrote letters to both Southern California Gas and Southern California Edison to ask them to start looking at restoring their utility services. They did get back and said that we probably need to see a little more long-term success, but they have moved to restore power at 25 of the homes. Some of those are in the city of Rolling Hills. The others are in our city of Rancho Palos Verdes. So we are continuing to push the power and gas companies to look at restoring their power, because that's a huge part of the pain that our residents have gone through over the last couple of months.
All right, and President Trump was there in recent months. He has a golf course in your area there, right? What has he said about the situation there, and what might happen here depending on the outcome of the election?
Well, he spent about 20 minutes with me at his golf course, and the leading question to me was, can this problem be solved? I told him it could, but financially it's just a bigger problem than the city of Rancho Palos Verdes can handle in terms of just the tens of millions of dollars that it's going to take to fix this problem. He did say, like you mentioned, his golf course is within a mile of the landslide area. And he did say that if and when he does win re-election, that he will be helping the city of Rancho Palos Verdes. So, of course, I'm hopeful for that. But I would take the same call from President Biden at this time as well. We need any help we can get.
Yeah, are you getting the help that you needed at this point, or what is your number one demand at this point?
Well, right now we're not getting all the help we need, and we talked about this buyout program, which are for individual residents. But our city still is looking for roughly $60 to $80 million in relief funds from FEMA for all the efforts we've had over the last couple of years with the amount of movement and because of the excessive amount of rain we've had, just not something we're used to. And part of the challenge is that as we've talked about, the governor still hasn't come down to see what's occurring, and the state of California continually says this is a pre-existing condition, and we beg to differ on that, but we're going to have to go through the steps to argue our case, and with the eventual hope that the federal government and the state government can step forward and provide our city some relief that we desperately need.
In addition to power, water is also an issue, right?
Right, and I think that's the other big part of the equation is with the amount of renewable energy options that we have, our power company can no longer say it's just an overhead power wire company. They need to start moving into modern technologies, and if residents or businesses require off-grid tech renewable energies, they should be the ones providing that. We should not have to go out to private industry to try to and have our residents be self-financing that. That, I believe, is the responsibility of our monopoly utility companies.
Despite the tremendous challenges there, you still have a beautiful city. Those views are absolutely magnificent, and people love coming there too, right? How's the economy holding up there in Rancho Palos Verdes in all of this?
Well, I mean, of course, our city is more of a bedroom community, but we do have an amazing resort, the Terranea Resort. Of course, we mentioned the Trump Golf Course, and we have a number of businesses on our east side of town. And we have low business taxes. We love our businesses. We support them, and I think they're all doing very well. And we always say, if you want to come do business, come do it here in our city. And so, yeah, no, it's an amazing and beautiful place to be. It's hard to get to, but that's part of the charm as well.
Just be careful going down that street. That's one thing I would certainly advise, Mayor. Well, thank you very, very much for that important update. Look forward to being in touch with you on what's happening in your beautiful place there. Rancho Palos Verdes Mayor, the Honorable John Cruikshank. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Frank, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. And out to the freeways now, 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Let's get the latest on crime and homelessness now. The homeless, by the way, are voting in Los Angeles, including in the Venice Beach area. Let's get the latest now from Soledad Ursua, Venice Neighborhood Council board member. Soledad, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Wonderful to have you with us. Give us an update on what's happening in beautiful Venice Beach.
Well, last Tuesday, to the surprise of the community, we saw a mobile voting van arrive on Rose Avenue at the Venice Family Clinic. Now, if you recognize the name, the Venice Family Clinic is the group that does the needle program in both LA and Santa Monica. This is a major homeless service provider. And what's interesting here is that the county of LA is spending major resources for this mobile voting van for the homeless, when just a few blocks away at our Oakwood Recreation Center, we have a full polling place that's been open for early voting for the past week and a half. I actually voted there a few days prior. So it's very strange why the county would want to spend such incredible resources on a voting van specifically targeted for the homeless. And then I found out later that on Skid Row at 7th and Alameda, the same day, there was also a mobile voting van for the homeless there. So what we're seeing is this is a really important voting block for the county. And you think about it, there's 76,000 homeless in the county of Los Angeles. And so you can imagine that they are probably voting for George Gascon. They're probably going to vote against Prop 36, which would ultimately reform Prop 47. And I'm thinking they're probably going to vote for Measure A, which is an LA County ballot measure, which would just increase more spending to the homeless industrial complex.
See it tonight, read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Mottek On Money and 790 KABC. On the air live with Soledad Ursua, Venice Neighborhood Council board member. Thank you for laying it out here. Any estimate on how many homeless people are voting, and what about identification and other things when they go to vote?
Well, as you and your listeners know, it is now illegal to ask for ID if anyone votes. And so we're really not sure how many homeless are voting. What we do know about the homeless is that they are a highly transient community. Many of them have come from other states. Many have come from other cities. So you could have a situation where one homeless person has been registered, let's say in San Francisco. Maybe they came from out of state. So there is a possibility here where somebody is registered to vote in multiple different states, in multiple different cities. If you look specifically at San Francisco, embattled Mayor Breed is now facing a really tough reelection. And before offering any services, they are now offering people bus tickets. And one of the top destinations is Los Angeles. So we're seeing that this, let's say, community of homeless people, they're highly transient. So there is a good estimate here that they could be voting in multiple elections. And that's a very big problem in California, where every single person is mailed a ballot.
So election integrity, very much an issue here, and the county basically facilitating these vans, getting people with no addresses essentially in there to vote. Apparently it's also legal to say, yeah, I live at the corner of Rose and Ocean, right? An intersection can be used as an address in a tent, and you can vote then?
Yes, that's right. It looks like we have very lax laws, and so you can just put an intersection. I don't know how you actually get the ballot, but that's not even one of the big issues. And this is something that has long been known. It is the homeless service providers, the nonprofits, that sort of act, as a location to receive ballots. For instance, the St. Joseph Center here in Venice, which is not a friend to the community, they have 200 mailboxes as a service for homeless individuals who are living on the street. So they say that the benefit here is that a homeless individual can receive their correspondence. They can receive their Social Security checks, their disability checks. And so, one might see that as a service. The Venice community sees that as a major disservice because you have people living on the streets and they're collecting their checks. But what's interesting here is, so they have 200 mailboxes. There is not one bed at that facility. So no one is living there. It just serves as a P.O. box. And as of 2022, there were 230 people registered to vote using those mailboxes. So that number could have increased in, it's now 2024. But this is a big issue that has always been known, and nobody's really taken a look and seen how many people are actually on the voter rolls at these nonprofits.
And what about RVs? We've talked about that over the years. Can RVs addresses also be used? And what is the RV situation there, which I remember you told the story about how you had to encounter someone parked on your street and had a problem there.
Well, the RV situation has actually gotten much worse. There's more now on Main Street. But what's really funny is that a few homeless individuals have had Trump signs up. So I don't know if conditions are just getting so bad in California that now the homeless are voting for Trump, but it's pretty funny. And, let's think about, what's going on in America. A RV is a legitimate form, of housing. So if other people in other states can receive mail at their RVs, there's no reason why anybody else cannot here. So it's such a crazy loophole that has happened. We do not have safe and secure elections in California. It's a real shame. Because if we were ever going to try to make changes in our states to make the living conditions better for everyone, we would need to make sure that we have safe elections. And so unless major voting reform happens, we can really expect more of the same. And that's just such a travesty for all of Californians.
And what is the crime situation there now?
Well, for the past few days, the residents in the Venice canals have sort of been under lockdown. There is an armed burglar that is attacking people starting at 5 p.m. The first incident started with someone getting robbed on Abbott Kinney at 5 p.m. The robber took a woman's engagement ring. So they're targeting tourists now. But it seems that every day around this time, around 5 o'clock, there's some sort of armed robbery. And LAPD has been unable to find the suspect. So he's running around in the Venice canals armed. It's been sort of 3 days of this manhunt now.
Do you see a police presence there?
It's limited. There's just, LAPD is at historic low levels. So unfortunately, if you call the police, it is very unlikely that they will respond unless there is a serious crime going on. So I think that's something that, LA-wide has just been really horrible for citizens, where unless a serious crime is going on, nobody calls the police anymore.
It's heartbreaking. Soledad, thank you for that important update and look forward to being in touch with you. We wish you and everybody there all the best. Soledad Ursua, Venice Neighborhood Council board member, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KABC News Blitz with Randy Wang, followed by Winning with Winans with Ken Winans and yours truly. That and more straight ahead right here, 790 KABC.
Former Navy SEAL Sean Ryan shares real stories from real people from all walks of life on The Sean Ryan Show.
Who is somebody you'd like to see on the show?
I think Tommy would be really funny.
I would love to interview Tommy Lee.
I was on a tour bus with Tommy Lee. I stayed on tour. We went to a few shows, and he drops me off. And my mom sees this Motley Crue tour bus, because my mom obviously knows who Tommy Lee is. She's like, "You were just with Tom." And I was like, "Yeah."
The Sean Ryan Show on YouTube or wherever you listen.